have to say right away, I mean, you're on absolutely everything right now, and you're using this show as a show reel to get on Gogglebox. I mean, come on.
I think it's an obvious next step for me, Darryl, to be quite honest with you. And I have to say, the criticism's probably justified. But before we get any further, I want to know what Sutton's selling this week. Is it a record? Is it a DVD? Is it another book coming out? What's going on with this fella?
Give me a little bit of time, Ali. There will be another book coming out next year. But let me just talk about your Gogglebox for a moment. I don't know which was the worst watch, Rangers or actually you last night. I'd rather watch horse and country television, Ali, than watch you.
Well, I've got to say, big fella, they didn't really give me a lot to shout about last night, Rangers, did they? Let's be honest about it. They never really laid a glove on Leverkusen. You know, I went to watch the game. I don't know about you, but I wasn't too hopeful or optimistic, shall we say. I was hopeful, but not optimistic. And but the game itself, clearly, Leverkusen, I thought, were on a different level with a couple of players that really stood out. And Rangers, you never really get going and never threatened, really, I didn't think.
Did you think that there was the actual belief to go over and win the game, or do you think they went over expecting to lose? That's the way it seemed to me a little bit, that they'd already had the white flag up.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd go as far a white flag, but I take your point. It certainly looked to me as if there was a kind of expectation that they wouldn't be they wouldn't be hanging around Germany, shall we say. You know, they didn't really. Let's make no mistake about it. They're playing a good team. Aside that could, I don't think they will, but they could win it. I don't think they will, but they could. And I didn't think there was any real. There was no real intent, Chris, from Rangers. I didn't think. You know, the first 5-10 minutes you're looking, and I was on the radio yesterday, and I said to the Rangers to have any chance, they have to score first. And my co-host immediately piped in, yes, and second and third, and it was then I was kind of thinking, I was thinking to myself, you know something, he's probably quite right. So make no mistake, it was a massive task, but I agree with you. Looking at the start of the game, the opening period of the game, I was a little bit disappointed that Rangers didn't show any real intent to go and have a go to get themselves back in the tie effectively.
I hope that mug's had a wash since last night, Ali. It's on every week now. What about the team selection?
Not just the
you mentioned Brandon Bar. Well, that's another subject.
That surprised me. I've got to say, when I saw the team selection, you know, I thought, you know, I'm honest with you, I couldn't see Barker in the start lineup. To be honest, it was a big surprise. From his point of view, it was an opportunity, albeit, you know, against a team that effectively, I don't think you're going to get an awful lot of ball and an awful lot of chances. So you could cut them a little bit of slack there, but certainly as an attacking force, Rangers, you know, the creation and chances they had were few and far between.
Chris, I'm sure though you'll still give a bit of praise to Rangers, won't you? The European run they had overall.
No, absolutely, of course. You know, I did think they went out with a bit of a whimper last night. Didn't do enough. Didn't have the belief. But having said all that, I mean, in terms of European competition, they have gone up a notch. They have been excellent. You know, a lot of memorable performances against the likes of, you know, of Porto. Excellent against them. And they can take great heart from that. And now it's concentrating on this season and stopping the 10 for them. Interested to hear Ali's thoughts on Morelos and his performance. Was that his last game in a Rangers?
Well, I tell you what. Just before you do that, shall we hear what Steven Gerrard had to say about Morelos after the game? He said this to Emma Dodds.
Everyone knows he's had his head turned, for sure. You know, there's no denying that. But we just move forward. My focus is on the team and the players that want to be here. And my focus is certainly on St Mirren. If a bid comes, I'll say it again. If a bid comes that the board like and are interested in, and the player tells me face to face he wants to go, then we'll see what happens.
You said he's had his head turned. Do you think that's showing in his performances?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Alfredo's professional enough to try and block the noise out and focus. You know, he hasn't had the best of games tonight, but we haven't as a team either. There's certainly no fingers blamed on anyone. We've given our best shots. Unfortunately, we fell short. But, you know, we all have to improve. You know, there's certainly no finger pointing tonight on anyone's performance. But Alfredo needs to remain focused.
So those were the words of Steven Gerrard less than 24 hours ago. Ali, what does that tell you about his feelings towards Alfredo Morelos right now?
You can tell a lot about people's body language, guys, you know, and I just don't think his body language is he's not giving off a good vibe to the Rangers support, shall we say. It looks to me as if, and to use Stephen's quote, his head's been turned. It looks to me, as, to be honest with you, as if his head's somewhere else. I still think he doesn't look as fit as he should, as he could or should be, to be honest, looking at him. And I think it's safe to say with the two lads that Stephen and Rangers have brought in, I certainly don't think Stephen will hang about and, you know, if the right offer comes in, selling them, but probably more importantly, leaving him out the team if he doesn't warrant a place in the team. And I know we can have the conversation, you know, you might be cutting the selling price down if he doesn't play, but at the same time, the way he's performed the last two games, he's certainly not adding to his value.
He looks heavy to me. He doesn't look conditioned. He doesn't look ready to play. So if people are looking at him, you know, they'll be looking at his attitude, whether he's ready to go in. And if Rangers are asking, 20 million for him, and you think for a player who can't be bothered to get himself fit, then, you know, maybe they're not going to get that, and there may be an issue for Rangers. But Gerrard clearly wants him out of the door with his comments. I've never heard him speak in the terms about Morelos as he did last night, saying his head has been turned. So, I mean, the question is, Ali, I suppose, is could he become a liability and more of a problem if he actually stays at Rangers?
You know, again, going back to body language, he looks to me as the type of player that, shall we say, wouldn't enjoy a period on the bench or enjoy a period of inactivity by not playing. He's kind of hinted that himself that he's ready to play. I think his quote was in a stronger league. And I just think it's nearing the stage. I look at Stephen's quotes last night. I'm listening to Stephen last night, and I think it's nearing the stage that it's, you know, clearly it's in everybody's best interest that a deal to take him away from the club is found sooner rather than later, to be honest with you.
Ali, just a very brief one. Would you play him at the weekend?
Yes, I probably would. Yeah, I probably would. As I say, it wouldn't surprise me, Darryl, to see him play the weekend and score, because there's an argument Rangers have started the season with. You probably couldn't take away Celtic. You probably couldn't get two tougher away games, being honest with you. You know, Pittodrie last night. So chances in those particular games are normally few and far between. As I say, good result at Aberdeen last night with a little bit of a disappointment in terms of the performance and as an attacking force. I probably would start them at the weekend, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him score.
How much do you think Rangers should sell Morelos for at this stage?
It's a difficult one, Chris. You know, if they're looking for 20 million and they're talking about 20 million, you know what it's like. You know the game that the clubs play.
We do have to go to a break.
Well, there's nobody better than your own club. You know, regarding, what was it, 50 million for Ayer they wanted or something like that. So, in that respect, I think probably about around about 15 million would be very
Well, hang about, we're not going to a break. I tell you where we're going. We're going to Germany now.
I'm peering into my tea again.
Right, there we are. We're going over to Germany now to join Rory Hamilton, who I believe is sporting a European hangover, but he is having a spot of breakfast with Alex Ray and reviewing last night.
So the morning after the night before, and a chance, Alex, to reflect on Rangers' performance last night in Leverkusen and also on their season as a whole in Europe, it was just really a step too far, wasn't it, last night?
Yeah, it was always going to be a difficult task having lost at Ibrox, but there's always that hope. You come out with a bit of expectation. However, it's just a bridge too far.
Well, a 13-month campaign as well. Quite incredible last year and a bit for Rangers. How would you sum up the campaign as a whole?
Yeah, it was a great adventure. You listen to other Rangers fans, it's been great going to all these different countries. Some really impressive performances. You're looking at Feyenoord, Porto, Braga, some top performances.
And the benefits will be felt in a year's time. Scotland's reputation getting a huge boost from the performances this year, and there'll be an extra team in Champions League qualifying in a year's time.
I think when you look at the overall, I think it's the second best coefficient we've had. And records have been a brilliant campaign from everyone, and it's important because we're really looking to try and showcase in the top table. Another spot at the Champions League is excellent, so it's been a positive all round.
What about this weather on the Rhine? It's all right.
Oh, it's a hard life, isn't it? I just need a little bit more coffee, guys.
Bit of breakfast with the boys there, German style. That looked lovely, didn't it? Right, very quick point to pick up on, Ali. How good is it that we're going to have two teams qualifying for the Champions League next time round? Also not locked out of the Europa League, as many said as well. One team get a chance to get in the Europa League, and two will have a go at the new Europa Conference League as well.
Darryl, it's a real boost for Scottish football. I'm absolutely delighted. And I just hope that obviously Rangers and Celtic next year can continue the good European form that they've shown. And they've been well rewarded for it. And so has Scottish football, courtesy of Rangers and Celtic.
Absolutely well said. Right, you know what time it is? It's quiz time, and you both love this. Sutton v McCoist. Ali will happily remind the nation and more that he's one up in the series. Another go at it this time round. The rules are quite clear. I'm going to ask you a question, one answer each. If you take too long, you're out. You lose. If you repeat someone else's answer, the opponent's answer, you're also out, you lose. So,
you give Ali longer
subject
than me.
this week. It's likely, Chris, yeah.
Darryl,
He's a nicer guy.
Can I just say, Darryl, I thought you handled last week's quiz superbly. I have to inform you.
Brilliant. I'm happy you got an answer wrong pretty quick, if I'm honest, because I was ticking them off and you wouldn't believe it. I was on about 4 pages of notes. I put it all on 1 page this time. Right, we're keeping the Europa League theme. Your question is, I want you to name any winner of the Europa League or the UEFA Cup since it came into existence in 1971. So any winner of that competition, the UEFA Cup and then on to the Europa League. Ali, you won last week, so I'll let you start this week.
Okay. Seville.
Correct.
Chelsea.
Check.
Man United.
Porto.
Zenit St. Petersburg.
That's very good.
Thank you very much.
What about Parma?
Is that the stage we've reached? We're just guessing now. Is this the stage we've reached? Atletico Madrid.
I was going to say that. Inter.
AC.
It's 1-1. Milan have never won the UEFA Cup or Europa League. Would you believe it? I mean, listen, you've missed so many. Let me run down some of the ones you missed. Spurs, Liverpool, Ipswich, Feyenoord, PSV, Ajax, Borussia Mönchengladbach, Frankfurt, Leverkusen, Bayern Munich, Schalke, Juventus, Napoli, Gothenburg, Anderlecht, Real Madrid, Valencia, Galatasaray. No Sporting Lisbon, Chris. CSK Moscow, Shakhtar Donetsk.
I knew all them, but I just thought you'd see Milan Celtic. Oh no!
Oh, listen, I hope I checked that correctly, but I'm pretty certain that is the case. Anyway, it's 1-1 the series. We'll pick it up again next week, but again, don't move you two. We're going to take a quick break. Lots more to come. We're going to be reviewing last week's SPFL games, looking ahead as well, and Michael Stewart is with us in part 2. We'll see you soon. second part of Scottish Football Extra on the way. As you can see, Michael Stewart has joined us. Good to see you, Mikey. We'll talk in just a moment, but first of all, I'll look back at what happened last weekend in the SPFL through the eyes of Stephen Craigan and Rory Hamilton.
Stephen, week 1 out the way, and the big 2 got their victories. No real surprise?
Well, no surprise that Celtic beat Hamilton, and that Odsonne Edouard was the main man. He's got 19 goals in his last 23 Celtic games, which is incredible. As for Rangers, I thought it would have been tougher for them. I didn't think Aberdeen were great on the day, but it's been their star man over pre-season. Ryan Kent, what a wonderful finish, I have to say.
That's enough about them. They get enough attention. Who else stood out for you as an individual?
It has to be Martin Boyle. You know, there's been a lot of speculation over the summer. Will he still be a Hibs player? Will he move on? What's his best position? I think his best position is a centre forward. 2 goals he got, although Michael did seem to think he's better on the right hand side, but he's not. He's better as a centre forward.
Best result, most important result of the weekend?
Probably St Mirren. You know, they struggled last year to score goals. They're always going to be well organised defensively, up against a good Livingston side who had a really good season last season. So Jim Goodwin will be delighted with the next Motherwell player, Richard Tate. Good diving header.
It's all about the well, but of course Dundee United back, and a great Tayside derby as well.
Mickey Mellon probably slightly disappointed. You know, St Johnson being down to 10 men, Callum Davidson first time in the dugout as a manager in his own right, so he'll be delighted to leave Tannadice with the draw, although he'll be looking for more next week.
Is that all? Any other results you want to talk
That's
about?
us, we can move on if you want.
No, what about, there was a big one up in the Highlands on Monday night.
There was indeed, we've got to say. I think Ross County worked ever so hard, conceded too many goals last year, clean sheet on the first game of the season. Ross Stewart, you've got to say, was a standout player. You know, he was supposed to be playing wide left, he was up centre forward, he was wide right. He was in his own box, heading balls clear. So good 3 points for the Staggies, but the well will be back.
They will indeed. And we'll look forward to match day 2.
Thank you very much to both of the guys. Right, we have to start with a worrying development in Aberdeen. We know now that 2 positive COVID-19 tests for Aberdeen players. 8 players will now be self-isolating, and it's worrying for the players first of all, isn't it?
Well, of course it is. You know, the players and their immediate family and friends. There's going to be a bit of a concern as to making sure that they've all been tested and taken care of, and that the health situation is taken control of. But then you think about the football side of it as well, and not being able to play, concerns that they lose their place in the team, and the impact it has on the side missing 8 players. It's not an easy one, especially when you think about what Dave Cormack has said recently, that they're not going to be bringing anybody else in. It is a one out, one in policy. So they're going to be a bit threadbare for the next week or so.
We've heard a lot about football teams living in their own bubbles at the moment. That's why they were allowed to continue Aberdeen even when the city was put in lockdown, Chris. But the Scottish Government have had their say in this. They're not happy at all with what's happened, and no wonder. Other side of it is, have the players been responsible enough?
Idiotic, really, weren't they? Totally irresponsible. I think Aberdeen talk about an investigation now, but the players, know what they should and should not do, and they shouldn't have put themselves in that situation. I'm hearing they went out, after the Rangers game at the weekend. You think they wouldn't want to show their faces anyway with how poor the performance was? They didn't turn up at all. But to go out and now be in this situation, I mean, it's a problem around the country. Everybody thinks, or certainly young people think, it's not going to be them, and now they've let the club down.
I don't know whether just with the way things have been recently in Scotland, that the perception and the feeling that we've got control of it, and perhaps the players have just sort of let things slip a little bit, feeling as if it's not going to happen. The cases are so low now, and I think this is not just a reminder for the football players and the club as a whole. I think the fact that the city of Aberdeen's had to go back into a lockdown is just a reminder for everybody that we've got to be vigilant over the next while, because it's obviously the virus is still out there.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely right. Right, we'll move on from that story. A few other things I wanted to ask you about. Celtic transfer activity perhaps on the way, Chris, or is it Neil Lennon's confirmed the interest in Stephen Fletcher? I think there's a bit of haggling over, is it a 1 year or 2 year deal that's on the table? But regardless, if Celtic were to sign Stephen Fletcher, would that be a good capture for them?
Absolutely, but that doesn't mean that they should sell Odsonne Edouard. Far from it. Stephen Fletcher would come in and he would certainly strengthen the squad. Odsonne Edouard can't play in in every game. Of course he can't. And with Lee Griffiths, the situation with him, can he be trusted? Then Neil needs to get another one in. It was good for Klimala that he got the goal against Hamilton, and good for his confidence. But what they get with Stephen Fletcher is tried and trusted.
Is the signing effectively been made to strengthen Celtic, or is it a warning to Griffiths or a potential replacement for Edouard?
I think it's pretty simple, isn't it? Bio looks like he's going to go out on loan. With regards to Klimala, he's not sure about him. I get that. With Lee Griffiths, he doesn't trust him. We've seen that Lee didn't knuckle down when he should have done, and Celtic are in the situation they are with him. So the fact is they have one striker, an outstanding striker, the best player in Scotland, who can be trusted. But I think Neil will want to rest him at times this season, and if he does want to rest him, then he has a player who can go into the team and who has great qualities. And I think it's as simple as that.
It's Kilmarnock next for Celtic. Michael and Kelly have just signed a Heartsman. Clevin Dikamona, ex-Heartsman, has arrived at the club. Do you like that signing and what Kelly are trying to do?
Funnily enough, I can remember a game that was standing next to Ali when Dikamona came on against Rangers and actually had a bit of a nightmare. But I think he's a solid enough defender, and I think he's a good signing. But that's not the area of the park that I think Kelly need to strengthen. They've got a good structure to them. They've got good ball players in the middle of the park. The difficulty for Kilmarnock is the top end of the park, getting a cutting edge. Ever since Malumbu and obviously Jordan Jones left, they've lost that X factor in the final third, and that's where they really need to strengthen.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about Livingston against Hibs as well. A key game, you think, for Livy at home, trying to get off the mark, but Hibs have started very well, Michael.
Yeah, well, that game last week, Hibs against Kilmarnock, the Kilmarnock played well for a lot of it, but they just lacked that cutting edge. Whereas Hibs, as you would expect, they've got great pace, they've got real cutting edge, the exact opposite of not just Kilmarnock, but a lot of other clubs in the division. They can break at speed and they can cut teams wide open. Livingston's obviously going to be a difficult game, and they'll be looking to try to bounce back after that defeat last week. And I think it's a good start for Hibs, and it's a game that they'll be looking at and thinking, they need to do better than last year against Livingston, and I think they can. I think they really can. I think they've got a good setup. The area of the park for Hibs that needs to be strengthened is centre midfield. That's the area of weakness for them. If they can get somebody in there, then Hibs are in a good place to go and challenge for European spots.
Strong link to Ross McCrory as well. We'll see what happens there. One game, just finally to mention, almost out of time, Chris. Motherwell Dundee United, I think it's worth a watch at the weekend. A few were surprised. The Steelmen went up to Dingwall and lost in the fashion they did.
I wasn't surprised, Darryl. Ross County are a very good team. It might surprise you, not me. A disappointing start from Motherwell. They missed it. Well, I think they did do, but I was just putting you right. Missed a penalty as well, Darryl, which was disappointing. So they'll back to winning ways, if you like. Had a good season last season. Counts for nothing at this moment in time. And Dundee United, I think they're going to struggle this season. I really do. I think it's going to be a tough season. Shanklin's going to be important for them. And probably be disappointed that they took the lead last week and let it slip.
The game I'm looking forward to more than is the Livingston game at home, because I think, as we said last week, if they're going to have a successful season again, you would expect them to get most of their points at home. So that's a good game to look forward to.
You're looking forward to Livingston at home? That's the game you're looking forward to?
I am, because I am looking forward to that game.
Are you a fan of plastic pitches?
It's the last thing. You know quite well. You and I have covered this conversation on numerous occasions. I strongly dislike plastic pitches, and stop trying to wind me up regarding them, please.
Right, listen, the bad news is we're out of time. The good news is we'll definitely be back next week to continue all these conversations and much more. Guys, thank you very much again. We're going to